Hi, and welcome to the very last art journal page in this little series. And I'm just so excited. Thank you for joining me. If you are joining me live, please say hi and tell me where you're from. And if you are watching this later, then I would still know, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. So I always start off by prepping the pages with gesso, and it's I know people say it's pronounced gesso, but I guess I am South African and we pronounce a hard G, so for me it's gesso. And I'm just using a little bit of gesso and a old card, like a credit card or a gift card that's been used up, and I'm just spreading the gesso really thin on my page. You can see I'm almost scraping it off, and I try not to leave any lines or bumps or anything so that it's very, very smooth. And we do this to just create a little barrier between the media and the paper. And then in this series I'm also starting off with black paint as my first layer, and for this page I'm using ink. So this is black acrylic ink. I squeezed out a little line at the top, and just with a wet brush I'm just going to paint it over my page by just adding water and no more pigment. So I love the way that the ink reacts to the gesso, and this is a beautiful wash that you create. So just go ahead and paint your page. You can use any color. I just find that the black is very dramatic, and I think it just inspires me on this journey of art journaling to do something daring maybe. So now I'm just dropping a few drops on the wet paint and just seeing how it flows. So this is just play, and you can do it any way you want. And I actually have a little workshop that's on sale now that I address a blank page. So I call it starting points, because sometimes the blank page is just so intimidating. So I will link it in the top right hand corner. You can just click and go and check it out. Okay, so I'm tilting my book back and forth, and just to let the paint flow a little and just clean up where you made your mess. That's why I actually put a sheet of white paper or cardstock down on my desk so that I don't make this mess on the desk itself. And next up, as a second step to all the pages that I'm making, I'm using collage. So this again is just a paper, a pattern paper by Maggie Holmes or crate paper, and I'm just tearing it up and I'm just going to stick it down. I like the colors, and I just like this pattern. So for me, interesting enough, when I do scrapbooking, I don't really like pattern papers that has a lot of patterns and things. I prefer the small B-sides usually, like the one that you see I'm painting over now with the small polka dots. That's probably why I purchased this paper, and not for the other side, but for this art journal page. This side is actually quite nice. It's a very good idea to wait. You probably know what I'm going to say. For your media to dry completely before you adhere your collage with Mod Podge, because otherwise you're going to make a mess which is not intentional. So that's always annoying for me, is when my messes are not intentional. I only want to make intentional messes on my pages, people. Okay, so I'm using Mod Podge and I'm putting a fair amount at the back, and I'm just going to, because what I found is if I don't put enough Mod Podge, the paper pulls up, and that's one thing I don't like at all. And you also want to put a little bit of Mod Podge on top of your collage papers, because that way, oh, I can't believe I just did that. Sorry, I'm just screaming at myself right now, watching the video while I'm doing the voiceover. Because what I like about it, if you put some media on top of your collage papers and you want to wipe it off, it's easy to do it if it has that little bit of a waterproof barrier on it. Okay, and so the next step, as with all the other pages as well, we're going to color with gelatos, and I'm using orange and yellow. So I'm just coloring on this side and on this side. This is a very interesting page, and how it built is very fascinating for me, even to watch on a video. So I'm very excited to actually share with you this particular page's journey. I'm also using this beautiful pink. It's almost like a coral pink. And man, if they would only, well, you probably can buy 100 lipsticks in this shade, but this is a beautiful lipstick shade. And there you go. So just a little bit, and now you just want to use clean water and just paint lightly over the gelatos, and that to me seals it a little bit. So even if I use other media over it, it doesn't smudge, you know. So you can see already just by not using, well, I'm using water on my paper and it's not buckling too much or warping, and that's because of the gesso barrier that's on there as a first layer of protection, I guess. So I'm just tapping the brush over my finger for some splatters, and this can dry completely, and then we'll go on with our next step, which is our monoprinting. So I'm very happy to say at this point that I just got my jelly plate in the mail, and I can't wait to start playing with it. Here everything is dry, and already just looking at it from this angle, it's really pretty what's happening there. All the lots of textures and lots of interesting parts, washes and layers and things. So now I'm just going to print, and I'm just using a transparency and a big roller and two colors, that beautiful lime green and then a phyllocyanine green, and I'm just going to put them side by side and use my roller to sort of mix them in. So just make sure your roller is nice and clean, and I just wipe mine with a baby wipe, or if it gets really tacky, you can soak it in Windex, and that really helps to just loosen everything up. So I soak mine in Windex for an hour or so, and then it just cleans very easily. Okay, so now I'm going to print with my transparency, and this didn't really work that well. I think even with the transparency being bendy, it's still not like a jelly plate that will really press into the paper. Plus, also the book is not as, I apologize for my camera, it's on autofocus, so it's trying to focus all the time, and I usually put it off autofocus. So, and now I'm just taking away the little bits that I don't want covered with the green. That beautiful little bird, and the bird didn't survive in the end, but at this point I still wanted to preserve a little bit of the collage paper. And in the end, I think what worked the best was just to use the actual roller on the page, and that really works. So I'm just speeding up the video a little bit, adding a little bit of the lime green, and now I'm just going to roll a little bit of this beautiful color on my page. And what I like about the roller is that it really preserves a little bit of transparency. So it's really like working on transparencies and layering the transparencies, and that's just how, you know, the feel you get from it. Okay, and then once this is dry, we're gonna add our light molding paste, and I'm going to show you what not to do. So I used this one on a previous one, and I think I put it the wrong side up. So I've used it, and now there's actual molding paste on the bottom of this stencil. So now I'm spreading my molding paste through it, and when I lift it up, everything is smudged. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no. So that's what happened. So if you reuse your molding paste stencil, make sure you use the same side up all the time. If you're using it right after, you know. So what I do now is just wipe it down with a little baby wipe. Just wipe everything off carefully, not too harsh, because you'll take everything off the page as well. And now I'm going to try again, but then I decided, why not use a different stencil? So I actually went to something totally different. So again, just see how forgiving this process is. If you use a stencil and you don't like what's happening, you can just scrape it off. So for this stencil, there are more white areas. So if I use the molding paste right through the stencil, there's more white areas. And you can see I only the middle of the stencil, and then I would not go to the edges, otherwise you'll have this line, which I didn't want. And I love this. So once this is dry, we are going to just paint with it. So I am going to just use that beautiful pink ink that I made. I think it is in the first or second video. I just added a little bit of the quinacridone magenta to white, a bottle that had just a little bit of white paint in it, ink in it, and I'm just going to paint it. So again, I put it on with a paint dropper, but I'm going to paint it with just a clean brush. So just lightly gonna paint over it and tilting my book slightly so that if there's any drips, it will drip down. And I'm loving this color so much. So when I look at the page right now, it's so pretty for me, and then you realize, you know what, sometimes you just have to stop. But that's the hard thing, right? You don't want to stop, but you also want to take a little bit of risk. So even if it doesn't work out completely, it's okay. But I actually like the way it turned out. It's a very, very fun process. That is that beautiful deep violet, and now again just a clean brush, and I'm wiping it quickly on a cloth, and then I'm just going to paint with it. And this will just bring a little bit of contrast, you know, on the page, which is really beautiful. And again, wetting the brush and then lifting it up so that it can flow here and there. And that's what I love, when that dark color flows into the light molding paste. Then it just goes into the little crevices and it dries a little darker, which is absolutely beautiful. And my favorite thing ever. I love it. So yeah, this should dry, and then but while it's wet, I'm going to color with the black gelato just here and there, and just add a little bit of the drama that I add in one of the earlier pages. I did the same thing, you know, so This is a fun way just to add a little bit of black in a very controlled way, if you want, on your top page, you know, the top and sides of your page. And it's nice to do it on the wet page because then the gelatos flow and you don't have to add water to it afterwards. So it's actually just amazing. I just love gelatos. I think they're so fun. Again, just a little bit of more contrast. Okay, next up I'm going to do my stenciling, and I'm using this stencil that I made, and you can download it for free from iheartstudio.ca. And I'm just going to spray with white. So this time I'm not going to spray with a dark color but with white, and I'm just going to hold it with my towel paint brushes, and I'm just gonna, and then I'm just spritzing it. So you can see I'm not spray painting continuously, I'm just spritzing here and there. Look how lovely that looks. And then I'm just going to do the other side as well. Even when the stencil lifts up, so on the left hand side where I've sprayed already, you can see how it creates an offset, almost like a little shadow, because the stencil wasn't flush against the paper, and I just love it. I just love all of it. So even if the stencil is too much or too little, I just like the texture that it makes. And that is what we love to do, right? Is just to create that texture. So those are little pieces of the light molding paste that was super thick. So I'm just removing it with my fingers. And actually, you know, looking at the page right now, it can almost be done. You know, it's really cute and I love the softness of it. But no, just you wait. I'm going to really take some daring risks here, and we'll see what comes out if you like the end result. You know, it's fun if you don't like it, but I actually love it. And what I like more is that I think I stretched myself a little. I cut my illustration because otherwise the book won't close, and I put one third on one side of the book and the other 2/3 on the other side. But before I stick down my illustration, I'm just going to stencil the leaves. So I'm actually going to do it in a light blue, and then I'm going to spray paint some darker blue as well, just using my opaque white paint and a little bit of cerulean blue, and I think it's Prussian blue, and I'm just going to mix it up. But the paint was too light for me. It just didn't work as well. I think it would have been nicer if it was a darker color. So I buy these little makeup brushes at the dollar shop, and I use them for stenciling. And this is where I saw that this color is too light. I want something darker, so I took out my Prussian blue. Well, I call it Prussian blue. I don't think that's the name of the Martha Stewart spray paint. And I'm just going to spray my leaves on versus stenciling it on. And that's fine. You know what? You are allowed to change your mind halfway through. And actually it looks nice, just using the spray paint as a layering over the stenciling. It's fine, and I really like that. So I'm just going to do a couple more, and just holding it down, spritzing it with my spray paint, getting that free trip, you know, by inhaling the fumes. We always joked when we did printmaking in university is that we're going to miss the free trip once we're done there. And now I'm just going to stencil back one or two leaves and create a truly layered look. So it looks like the light and the dark leaves are layered, which is super cool. I think it's a very, almost like a complex effect. And now I'm just positioning my illustration again just to see what's up, and then I decided this page needs red, and this is where you have to have those 10 seconds of bravery and just say, okay, whatever, even if it looks like blood splatters, let me splatter it. So a little bit of red is really beautiful, except that I decided that spot is too small, so I took a brush and I'm just going to paint it a little bit bigger. And then I decided maybe it's not dark enough. So I don't know, we'll see what So, so this is it. Like the illustration at this point is directing the traffic for me and telling me where to go with this little art journal book or art journal page. This is a stencil that I made for a class. I think it's for Paint and Prayers, and I've been using it over and over and over again. And I am just going to be using my self-made little spray bottle, and I have this little spray bottles, and I just put in ink, but you have to aim right because I just sprayed my fingers black there. But I love it. So you just put acrylic ink in a little spray bottle, and voila, you have your own homemade spray paint. Just don't spray your fingers like I did there. Voila, you see? Yikes. And I love that texture. It's amazing how the black just makes it pop, And now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, where next? I didn't actually darken the red. When it dried, it darkened already. So that's what happened there. Okay, and now I'm just going to add Mod Podge to the back of my illustration. And I always like to work on a very clean surface. So I have this little paper plate that I turn around, and that's the only thing I do on it is put Mod Podge on my illustrations. And then I'm just going to stick it down, and I'm going to do the same with both sides. So, and then I'm going to paint over it as well. Just make sure that all the paint around it is dry. There you go. And now we are going to just do a little bit of detail. So this is that beautiful, I don't think it's Prussian blue. I think it's the turquoise deep, which is a beautiful color. And I'm always surprised at how thin you can actually draw with your little paint droppers, So you can actually make a very thin line with it. And you just need to have a little bit of ink. And even if the line width varies, it's really interesting, very interesting line work that you can do with a paint dropper. So some is thin, some is thick, and it's just pretty. There's no way else to say. I just love, love, love it. That's maybe why I do it. But you can put it in a little container and use a little paintbrush as well. Just always put the lids on tight on your ink bottles because they will fall over. So I'm just drawing with my little paint dropper, and you can see the difference it makes when you add that little bit of a darker color, right? Well, to me it does. I love, love, love this. And now I really just want a space where I can write. So I wanted to figure out, before that, I'm just going to paint that part in. So I always like to do my journaling on a very calm piece on the page that doesn't have a lot of texture, and that's what I'm looking at now. Like, I need to find a spot to journal. And this is where I also did like a little daring thing. I just decided to paint a big part of it a solid color. So I'll show you in a second. First of all, I'm just going to spray with a little yellow. I felt that I need to put yellow on it. And I cover what I don't want sprayed. It's very important. And so I like that yellow, and then I decided, wow, why not paint the bottom part yellow? And that's what I did next. So a little bit of cadmium yellow with white, and you're going to paint it, and then you're going to add more white, and you're going to paint it some more. So that is so cool. And I'm using the heavy body white, which is very opaque, but I'm using the Liquitex Basics yellow, which is not as opaque, but it's okay because the white is. So now I'm just going to paint that bottom part, and this is where I will be doing my journaling. So I'm not going to paint over all the lines. I'm going to leave some of it so that you can see a little bit of the drippings and the markings, so I don't cover everything up. And believe it or not, but even for me, sometimes so hard to find the right shade, of yellow or whatever, that it has to work with your page and it has to feel just right. And for me, sometimes even that doesn't feel right. And so for me, when I looked at this, I'm like, oh, it's too yellow. It's a little too yellow. But fear not, we will add a little bit of white to it, and that will make everything better. A little bit of dry brush painting. And I am speeding up my video, so I can't really paint this fast, I wish. And I'm just going to add a little bit more white and see if I like it a little better, and that's fine. So just on a different side of the palette, you just add a little bit of white, and the paint is wet, so it will blend a little bit on the page as well. So I like that. Look like sun rays shining through, which I really like a lot. You can see how opaque the white paint is, how it just literally covers everything that's underneath it. So now I'm creating this lovely area for me to write on, and I'm loving where this page is going. I really do. This is also very interesting, and every time I look at this area that I'm painting now, I think to myself, wow, this is the beginning of maybe something new for me, is where, you create texture and then you repaint over it. So now it looks like the leaves have texture on them, I just love that area. To me, it's a whole new little painting. That's why I have so many brushes, is because I like to use a clean brush for every part, and then I just put it in the water. And a baby wipe if you want to wipe anything away, which is awesome. And now let this set for a day. And now I'm just going to draw my columns up so that I can write. And what I did was I decided to write in 4 columns. And that's just a little easy sometimes for me. And I'm just going to make them each about 5 centimeters wide, and I'm just going to do a quick line right through so that I keep it more or less straight. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just more or less. Very light line, you can't even really see it from here. And now I'm just going to write my journaling, and I'm using again that Staedtler, it's a transparency pen, so it's permanent. I'm going to stamp the date, which I'm so happy I remember to do. And then as my journaling, I'm just going to write a prayer. So I'm just going to fade out, and I'll come back once it's done. You can see how interesting it is to work in 4 columns versus maybe 1 or 2, and it just gives it a little bit of a magazine feel. I just like it. I think it's something different. And I'm just finishing up my writing here, and here you can see everything is done, and I'm just going to stamp a title, Strong, and this is from Illustrated Faith stamps that I created for them long ago. I can't even remember how long. I don't know, years ago. Anyway, and that will be my title, and now I'm all done. So thank you for watching, and I hope some of you have watched all 4 of the videos and just see how they all link in together and how they build on each other, and how interesting it is to start with the same idea with the black background, the collage, and then the gelatos, and how even with the molding paste stencil, and how it all developed and look so drastically different. So interesting. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you for hanging out with me, and I hope to see you in the interwebs soon with another tutorial. Okay, bye.